free agency period begins exactly at 12:01 Saturday night. And happy to be joined with ESPN NBA insider Amin Elhassan, who's also going to be he's all over the place. You got 3 ESPN2 free agency specials. ESPN2 is going to televise the NBA free agency specials, beginning with a 2-hour show. That'll be Saturday, July 1st at 12 a.m. Midnight. You got the hour-long shows as well later in the day at 7 p.m. And then Sunday, June 2nd at 7 p.m. So you'll catch him wall-to-wall on ESPN. Amin, I appreciate a couple moments, pal. How you been?
No, not bad. Just running around. You know, obviously, all hell broke loose for us this week, as it does every single year. But you know, this is a time when everyone's really locked in. So
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? It's a fun time, and it seems as though the free agency period and some of the moves have been a little more exciting than the season and the playoffs. But hey, look, let's start with the Knicks for a moment. And I'm just wondering, in your eyes, how do you think everything transpired? You know, the breaking point for the organization and Dolan to part ways with Jackson, or maybe Phil went up to Dolan and said, listen, my heart's not in it. Maybe Melo's people went up to Dolan and said, I can't play for this guy. You know, at the end of the day, in your eyes, in your opinion, how do you think everything went down?
I mean, I think for me, when it comes to Phil Jackson, this is what we know, is that regardless of how his transactions turned out, he had some good ones and he had some bad ones, as they all do. But more disturbing than that, he basically eroded what little confidence basketball people had in the Knicks, right? The Knicks already didn't have a great reputation.
Nope.
He somehow found a way to make it worse. And you do that when you pick fights with the most powerful and the most influential player in the league, in LeBron James. And you do that when you drag your own best player through the mud, in Carmelo Anthony, a guy who also is very influential and powerful among other players in the league. And you do that when the one good thing that you did, Kristaps Porzingis, you alienate him and say that he's not a franchise guy and all this kind of talk. And so what ended up happening is, it doesn't, like giving Joakim Noah $1 million, $100 million, $70 million, that's not as bad as people saying, I don't mess with the Knicks because look at how they treat guys.
Right, right. No, and listen, you're right. You can't, and at the end of the day, too, you also can't make that type of money and not put an honest day's work in. You can't. You just can't. You can't coach or be a GM or a president out on the West Coast. You just can't do that.
You can if you're working on the West Coast. You can't if you're following.
Well, if the East Coast, sure. You know what I'm saying.
You know, like my point is, like, you don't, like, sure, it's ideal if you are local and you're there, but you don't have to be. But here's the thing, wherever you are, you better be working, because if you're not working, and it was very clear that Phil Jackson was not the greatest work ethic in the world as a president of basketball ops. And that shows, and guys know, players know, like, look, this dude is falling asleep at workouts, he's skipping combines like he did last year, and like everything about him is like this, I'm Phil Jackson, I won 11 rings, I don't need to do the work. And guess what? Doesn't matter who you are. And it's like, Pat Riley's won 1 million rings too. He still shows up to the office super early, stays late, and demands excellence from everybody in his organization.
Yep, no doubt. All right, a couple big names potentially on the move. How do you think everything falls into place with Paul George? And it's interesting because now with the reports with ESPN and Wojo and everyone that they're going to hire Buchanan as their new GM. I know George is on the block, and he told the Pacers, listen, no matter what, I'm leaving after next year. So it's almost like, all right, you're forcing the hand a little bit, kind of like what George did when he engineered that trade. I'm sorry, what Paul did when he engineered that trade to get out of the Clippers to go to Houston. So if anything, where would be the best fit for George? And do you see the Indiana Pacers trading him? Because it seems as though they got to give up, you got to get a lot to get this guy, give up a lot.
They have to trade him, because if you don't trade him, he's gone and you get nothing for him. Like you just mentioned, Chris Paul basically made that play this week when he said, look, even though I declared I would opt out, I didn't file the paperwork. The paperwork doesn't need to be filed until the 29th. If you do not trade me right now to Houston, I file that paperwork, I'm out of here and you get nothing, right? Same thing here. Paul George, but instead of 2 days, he's given them a little bit more advance notice that you need to trade me. But to get the most value from a guy who's going to be, in theory, a rental, you have to give the team acquiring him enough time to, if I'm the Celtics or the Cavs or the Rockets or any one of these other teams that say we want Paul George, what is your message? Your message is, Paul, I know you want to go to LA, and I know today if you had your druthers, you'd be a Laker. But by the time this year is done, you're going to fall so madly in love with this organization, this city, these teammates, this coach, this style, this tradition of excellence, that you won't want to go to L.A. and be part of a rebuild and babysit Lonzo Ball and all those guys. You're going to love it here. You're going to stay here forever and ever. You won't be a rental. You'll be a mortgage. You're going to put roots down, right? But you have to, as one of those teams, in order to feel confident that you can convince him of this, you got to have enough time with him. And so every day that passes where he's not traded, you have whatever trading team for him has a little less time to convince him that Boston or Cleveland or Houston is so awesome. And so if you're the Pacers, you got to do it quicker, because the longer you wait, the less you can get back for him, because then he turns into a true rental.
And to kind of piggyback your point, listen, yeah, I know you want to play in Los Angeles, but hey, how about this? You come with Boston, you come with us, you're going to challenge LeBron. You're going to have an opportunity in the Eastern Conference to knock him off his perch. Western Conference, you got to go through San Antonio, you got to go through Golden State. I mean, does that ever cross a player's mind?
Absolutely. That's the sales pitch of all the Eastern Conference teams, is that, look, the East is wide open, and LeBron is not perfect. He's great, but he's not. But if we put together a strong enough team, we can take him, right? That's what they're saying. If they're the Celtics, you're pointing at, look, man, we have Gordon Hayward, perhaps.
Yep.
Isaiah Thomas. That's 3 all-star, all-NBA caliber players. Al Horford has been an all-star pretty recently, too.
Yep.
Like, that's our super team out here in the East. You go to L.A., not only are you starting from scratch, because all those guys are just young guys, you're starting from scratch. What is that, like an hour-and-a-half flight south of the greatest team in basketball? Like, is your goal to get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs?
Right.
Or is your goal to go to the finals and maybe have a chance to win it all?
Let me ask you, too, and I know we're a little tight on time. Let me ask you, too, on the Sixers. I'm curious. So there were a couple of there was an interesting article that was written this week regarding the Rookie of the Year voting. And obviously it didn't go to Dario and it didn't go to Embiid. But I guess the premise of the article by one of the media members in Philadelphia was that this is kind of the media's way of getting back at the Sixers because of the tanking and the process. I think it's ludicrous. I don't think they conspire like that. I think when you write something like that, you kind of alienate members of the media. Do you get a sentiment that there is a notion, a minority or a majority of the national media that whether they like what they did or they didn't like what they did not want to see one of their players win Rookie of the Year, because in their eyes, in their world, that would actually validate this process has worked. When, by the way, it hasn't, because it's got to translate to wins and players have to be healthy to play.
Right. So that last point is the operative point here, is that Joel Embiid played 31 games. Like, that's the real argument here, right? Because Saric versus Brogdon, that's a wash, right? Saric averaged more points. Brogdon played more meaningful basketball on a winning team and led rookies, I think, in assists, right?
Yep.
So that's a toss-up. Some people I can see, some people say I like Saric, some people say I like Brogdon in that situation. When we talk about Embiid, he played 31 games. And so I'm on the show with Rachel Nichols. Rachel's whole thing is like, but he was clearly the best rookie in those 31 games. I said, Rachel, what if he'd averaged 30 points and 30 rebounds and the Sixers were undefeated in those 31 games? Is he now the MVP because he was so much better than everybody else? Right? Like, is that the logic you use? No. At some point, there has to be a bare minimum of showing up that you do. And does it suck that he got hurt? Of course it does. But I'm sorry, you can't give a dude an A for showing up for a third of the
I agree.
semester, even if he was sick for the rest of the
Because
semester.
you can't make the you're right. You can't turn around and make the argument, well, if he wasn't hurt, he would have averaged 25 for 50. Yeah.
But he was hurt. Exactly. You always go by was hurt. So that's why Embiid didn't win Rookie of the Year. And then when you get to Saric and Brogdon, I think if you are a level-headed human being, you can at least see the argument why some people would like Brogdon over Saric. I'm not saying it's clear-cut. I'm just saying you can, it's just like Westbrook versus Harden. I'm not saying that, Harden didn't deserve MVP, but you can see the argument. Oh, yeah, that's right. Harden did have a good campaign as well. But to get to your initial point, stop with the conspiracy theories. People, you sound like an idiot. When you're saying this guy might have put a bad light, make the media members not like him. No. He makes himself look stupid. right? Any rational human being who reads that says, so wait a second, you think 100 media members, including some from Argentina and all across the world, we all got together on a conference call and said, let's teach the Sixers a lesson. Oh, like, come on, man. I'm sorry, Philadelphia's not the center of the basketball universe. People talk about Golden State and Cleveland, and that's what people care about. And if you think we're sitting around on a phone call or an email string trying to get together to make sure that the Sixers don't get any shine, you sound like a moron.
Listen, last one for you. I went off yesterday. I agree. I'm sorry. I'm just laughing on the other side over here. Listen, before I let you get out of here, I know you're a Star Wars guy. So how do you knock off the evil umpire, right? The Golden State Warriors. Who's got the best shot, say, within 3 to 5 years to give them a good run for their money? Because there's no guarantee that they're going to win 2 or 3 more titles, but they'll be in position for that shot.
So, and to continue with the Star Wars analogy, they blew up the Death Star. They blew up the Death Star. Like, how did they ultimately defeat the Empire? 1, they blew up the Death Star by hitting a 1 meter by 1 meter shaft with a 1 in a million shot, right? That's 1. 2, they were able to alienate and change leadership at the highest level, right? Like Darth Vader switched sides and threw the Emperor down the shaft, right? So those 2 things. So basically what we're saying is, to defeat the evil empire, you need a lot of breaks. You need a lot of breaks. And so what are those breaks going to be? Yeah. I don't know. So I think you got to be a team with a lot of length that can bother them defensively, that can switch a lot. You got to be a team that's a good shooting team, because you're going to need the shooting to keep you in these games when they go on these runs. And then, man, you're going to need a defection of some sort, right? Whether Durant ends up leaving or Curry ends up leaving on the line, or maybe it starts now if Iguodala leaves. So if I'm another team in the league and I'm hell-bent on seeing the Warriors get weakened, I'm putting in huge offer sheets for Iguodala and Sean Livingston, because
weaken them. Exactly, yep.
Yes, you weaken them. You pull them much in the same way that Danny Ainge facilitated a trade to help Cleveland clear cap space so that LeBron would leave Miami and sign in Cleveland, right? Danny Ainge didn't benefit from LeBron going to the Cavs other than he made Miami weak.
Yeah.
And so that's what you got to do. You have to take one for the team.
Yep.
And in the words of many Saturday night.
And I kind of brought that up. You weaken them. That's how you beat them, and then you pluck them off at the right moment. I appreciate it. Hey, always opinionated. I always appreciate what you bring to the table. We'll look for you with all these specials on ESPN too throughout the weekend. I know you got a busy next couple of days. Hey, don't back down. Don't back down when people are trying to give it to you. We like that. We like a little feistiness.
Always.
All right, we'll talk to you along the way. I appreciate it. Take care, pal.
No problem.
All right, you got it. Amin Elhassan. A lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff right there.